Hello, everyone. My name is Jade Spooner. I'm the marketing content editor for Practicum, and I want to welcome you all to our first in a while, Break into Tech Lunch. And this will be a discussion on how to start your career in IT. We have about an hour of time, and you have plenty of great info for you today. So this presentation will be as brief as possible. So I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. First things first, we ask that you please keep your microphone on mute just during the discussion. Secondly, cameras are completely optional, but we do encourage that you have them on. But again, it is optional for you to have it on. And then third, any questions that you may have that may come up during the Q&A session or anything like that, please feel free to drop them in the chat box to the lower right-hand corner in Zoom, and we will get to them at the end of the Q&A session. So just to give a brief overview of Practicum by Yandex, we are an educational IT platform that bridges the gap between short-term online courses and full-time boot camps. So if you will turn your attention to the video, I'm going to show you about a 50-second clip of what we do. All right, and of course we are in partnership with international nonprofit Women Who Code, who have long been dedicated to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. They are aiming to build a world where women are proportionally represented as tech leaders, executives, and much more. We have also created a joint scholarship program to support these women in tech, which we will get to a little bit later in the program. So without further ado, I will introduce our panelists. First, we have Archana Vaidheeswaran, Artificial Intelligence Engineer at Continental and Leadership Fellow at Women Who Code. Hi, Archana. And then on the Practicum side, we have Nadya Primak, Web Development Bootcamp Instructor, passionate software engineer and indie game developer and writer. And also we have Linda Kovacs, a Practicum student and software engineer at Accenture. Thank you all for joining us today. We also had Mary Kate Comer, but unfortunately she could not join us today, but hopefully we get to speak with her in the near future. So without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen. Hello, everyone. And we will begin with our Q&A portion. So I hope everyone's excited as I am to start this today. So I'm going to just begin with some brief general questions about the roles that you all have and what those entail, like what does it look like on a day-to-day basis? And then we'll get into the more specific questions on your role. So my first question, let's start with you, Nadya. What does your role as a web development bootcamp instructor entail? So what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure, yeah. So I pretty much support the students throughout the program. So they have kind of what's called sprints, like 2-week periods where they each get a project assigned every 2 weeks, and they have to complete that project. And they also have to go through some instructional material on the platform. And so if they have any questions on the platform, or if they're running into any roadblocks or anything, I'm there to support them. And the same with whatever project they're working on that week. I'm there to just answer any questions, give them video recordings to walk them through any issues. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then same question, Linda. So what does your role as a software engineer at Accenture entail? So what does a day-to-day operations look like?
So you mean for Practicum? For Practicum, I'm just a senior student that I'm helping the other students with assignments or questions or issues they might have. But in my day-to-day job, I'm a software engineer at Accenture. So.
Okay. And what does your role at Accenture entail? So what do you do on a day-to-day basis as a software engineer at Accenture?
So I'm working with the redesign team, and we went in more than one phases, not only the design, even we worked with the development team, and now we are working on the testing. So we are a little bit going in all the phases of the product that we are working on. I work with a very large team, and the going live with the final product should be at the end of the year, and next year we will assist the client with learning the new platform. So I cannot give too many details because we are not allowed. So I think you understand.
No, it's completely fine. And then Archana, so what does your role as a artificial intelligence engineer at Continental tell? So what are you doing day to day? You can share as much as you want. Just what are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I just want to say hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. And it's so nice to be here. And so I'm joining in from Singapore, just to let you guys know. And it's 12 a.m. here. So I've had just a little bit of coffee. So I'm hoping your questions can keep me awake. And so a little bit about my background. So yeah, I work as an AI engineer right now. I've been working in the deep learning space since 2017. Like I started as an intern, and then did like a research engineer at an NLP-based pharma IT company. And then I moved on to Continental last year. So Continental basically works with in the automotive space. So we work with automotive vehicles, like self-driving cars or other vehicles as well, not only cars. It can be like cubes and buses and so on. And we also work with robotics. And one of the interesting things about working with this field is that we get to work with these really tiny devices called microcontrollers. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, like, for example, using a Raspberry Pi or using like an Arduino. Obviously, both of them come in separate categories. But yeah, if you have ever used it, we do use it in our day-to-day basis too. We use like a industrial grade of it, let us say. But yeah, I get to basically run deep learning models on these small devices and do detection inside, for example, cars. You can take it as simple as figuring out if like a driver is falling asleep, something as simple as that. So we work around such areas. But like currently, I'm also working with data management tools. So what we realized in Continental is that data visibility is so important. We have teams like stretched out the entire, the globe. And the issue is like all of them generate data. So we want to make sure that there's data visibility within our teams as well. So I am working on a data management tool right now, which is fun too. So as an AI engineer, I think I just wear a lot of hats at a lot of different times. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. So speaking of wearing many hats, you do also work with Women Who Code as a leadership fellow. So what does that entail? I know you just went over that, but also what does that role entail at Women Who Code? How'd you even get involved with Women Who Code?
Yeah, so I guess it all started somewhere last year, just right after the pandemic started, and Women Who Code was hiring for this amazing role called Leadership Fellow. And I basically love working with communities. I've worked with PyCon India. I've also worked with women in machine learning and data science before. I've worked with Women Who Code Singapore and Women Who Code Chennai before. So I had worked with a lot of their networks, and this seemed like a perfect job opportunity. And I knew I was going to have less people to talk to. So this seemed like a perfect opportunity for me to stay connected with the community. And it's been an amazing journey so far. My job is to run 2 tracks. with another co-lead called Bree. So I run the Python and the cloud track. They're technical tracks. We have 6 technical tracks in Women Who Code, and we run the Python and the cloud track together. And it's basically taking care of volunteers and also figuring out events. So we do a lot of events almost every month, like 3 to 4 events in the space of cloud, also in the space of Python, right from data structures to deep learning. Anything you name it, we do webinars, we invite speakers to come and talk. So all of that we coordinate and we organize that. So that's pretty much it.
So I'm going to switch gears back over to Linda. I remember you touching on that you are a practicum student. You were in the web development program, correct? Yep.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you about your experience with practicum. What did you like best? And also, was it challenging for you? Was it easier than you thought? So let's talk to a little bit about your experience going through that program.
Yeah, in order to talk about this, I will have to give you a little bit background on how things. Otherwise, if I start with answering the question, people might not understand. So first of all, I joined the Practicum last year during the pandemic, in exactly at the beginning of the pandemic. I heard about this bootcamp through Women Who Code in a newsletter that they sent regularly. And I enrolled. I had experience in the past working in the web development and web design in general, but with different stacks, with different languages and so on. So I said, okay, let's do this. It will be easy since I have experience, like, to drive the car on the right-hand side when you go in England. All of a sudden you start to have problems. So same thing happened here. So I had experience, but the curriculum was pretty tough. I really enjoyed the experience because it was not boring. I learned a lot of new things because last time when I did a class in React and the framework in general was in 2019. And when we finished the bootcamp, was like 3 months of bootcamp, they just released React hooks and they was just getting adopted and things like this. And many things was released after. So anyways, I had to, relearn things and relearn on my own. At the time, before the pandemic, I was freelancing. So, the time for learning and working was kind of divided. With the pandemic, I was more focused on reinventing myself. So I took this bootcamp. So there was parts in the program. So the best part in the program that is that you build real work experience. It's the curriculum is built in sprints, which mimics the real experience. When you go to work in a company, you will have these sprints that are between 2 and 4 weeks. Well, at the end of the sprint, you will have to, after you go through the theory, the challenges, you learn all the concepts. After you go to build this project, then again, the real world experience, you have the reviewers reviewing your work and you have to adjust based on the review comments. It's just like your client will give you the review and saying this part I would like it this way, or this one I don't like it this way. So it's same thing. So all the program is built with the mindset of the real world experience. So if you go through all of this, plus you have deadlines, you have soft deadlines, hard deadlines. So it's just like when you are in the job with the client, you have deadlines and you have to respect those deadlines. So I put myself on the spot, and I liked the experience because, you know, when you learn on your own, you say, okay, today I don't feel like it, or I will do it next week. But when you are with the team and you have deadlines, and if you fall behind, they contact you, they try to help you to get over a sort of deadline if you missed it or something. So it really, I enjoyed it. It's was difficult, but at the same time, it's satisfying because you see the results of your own work. You see that you can make it, and you have a community to help you. You have tutors, you have instructors, you have senior students, you have a community, you have questions, you can brainstorm and find your own solutions. So that's why I really enjoyed this experience. And
That's awesome.
at the end of the day, they have even other paths. They have the career path and other things that help you to get into the job world. So.
That sounds, thank you so much for that. And then also, I remember you touched on during the pandemic, it was kind of when you stepped into working with Practicum. So would you say that was your intro into tech? And then I'm going to ask Nadya and Archana that question as well. So would you say that was your intro into tech, or did you mention that you already had experience with tech, or was that your first experience with tech, with Practicum?
Basically, I lived in different countries during my life. I'm born in Romania, I lived in Italy, and now I moved to United States. You know, when you go to live in other countries, you don't have the freedom to say, oh, I want only to do this job, or I want to do the other job. So basically, even though I didn't finish the university, I did only 2 years of computer science, and I left, I moved to Italy. I had to reinvent myself. And of course, I did translations. I did a job that was not related to computer science at all in the beginning, but going over, in the end, I was able to find the position that will fit me. But the position was just working on that position, and after people discover you, oh, you know to do this, oh, can we do this, or can we do that? So many times from one thing comes another one. And then I started to work in IT in general. So I worked in all the facets of from hardware to software. I worked as a web developer, designer, but the thing here is I didn't have a certification. I didn't have a background on it. So I was just learning as I go. If I was asked, can we do this? So I will try to learn online quickly, Googling, finding books, finding videos, finding documentation, and make it work. So that was my experience. So I never had like this full comprehension of the things. Okay, you need an app for this, you need a website for this, you need a brochure, you need a flyer, you need a GIF for this. I will go and learn it. So it was all my life, I felt like an impostor, let's say, because I was not qualified for the job. I just did it because I could learn it and make it work. But with the Practicum, what happened, I went to put all these pieces together because they have everything from the beginning to the end. And I said, and I could relate, okay, so this is like this, so this is like that. And in the end, I got the whole picture. And the takeaway from here is don't cut yourself your opportunities, even if you don't have the certifications or you don't have the qualifications, or you think that you don't qualify for a position, just apply and see if you get it. Only applying for jobs, you can find out if you are prepared to interview. You can practice interviewing only if you interview, not just waiting to finish the boot camp and after to be ready to apply. When you will be ready to apply, you will not be ready to interview and so on. So you have to put yourself 100% since the beginning and start to look for jobs. You'll never know if you will get an interview if you don't apply to see if your resume is ready, your cover letter is ready, because there are not only people going to check this your application. There are even computers, programs, applications that are checking on this. So when you apply and you receive a call, you say, okay, so my resume passed, my cover letter passed, my LinkedIn profile passed. Okay, you go to the next phase. Oh, you failed. Okay, so means that I have to improve my communication skills. You go to the next level. Oh, okay, so I failed because I didn't know to answer the questions with algorithms and data structures. Okay, so I will prepare this and go to the next. So it's like this, step by step. So it's a learning process. We don't born knowing to interview. We learn to interview by interviewing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for that, Linda. No, thank you. You're preaching. I like that. So just to take it back a little, bit, I mentioned that I did want to get an idea of how both Nadya and Archana broke into the tech industry as well. So I'll start with you, Nadya. How did you kind of get into the tech industry? Was it something that you were passionate about from a very young age, or was it something that you just kind of broke into, like I did with marketing, something that you just kind of broke into?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I was a kid, I was into games a lot. I really liked to play computer games and video games. And I was like, I don't know if anyone else remembers like Neopets when they were little. Yeah, so I was like super into that stuff. But I didn't really think of myself as like someone who would become a programmer. I mean, I think, you know, the industry is still so gendered, and like as a kid, well, also, so like my parents, they're both, well, I guess technically I am too, but I left when I was 4. We're immigrants from Siberia. And my parents both have PhDs in physics. So they wanted me to be a scientist, but I wasn't really into science or math. And I actually was really into art. So when I went to college, I was kind of like, thinking I would be an artist or like a designer. I mean, my parents were really pushing me away from just pure art because they were worried about money for good reason, so I was kind of looking into design, but I knew that I liked, you know, messing around with computers and just like playing around with computers. So I was like kind of investigating that, and I ended up taking a few classes in computer science. And at the time, I definitely felt very much like an imposter in those courses. My parents also had always been kind of like tiger parents, like they wanted me to get straight A's. And when I was in this computer science class, I was like, I'm not going to get an A in this class. Like this class is really challenging. I spent like all my weekends just straight up nonstop working on the assignments. And I would end up doing really well on all of the like take home projects, but I did not do well on the tests that they gave me in the classroom. Those tests were extremely difficult. So I felt like I wasn't doing well enough because of this stupid like straight A concept. And yeah, I ended up not continuing, and I ended up kind of thinking I might do like web design or graphic design. So after I graduated college, I spent 2 years working at the art department, kind of helping students learn about like Adobe Photoshop and different like media lab stuff like video editing and stuff like that. But during that time, I kind of came back to web development, and I ended up spending those 2 years also teaching myself JavaScript and making some my own games in my free time, which I really, really enjoyed. And my husband actually had lived in St. Louis when he was younger. At the time, he was my fiance, and he knew about this program in St. Louis called Launch Code, and it's kind of similar to Women Who Code. I mean, they're all kind of similar, but they really helped people who didn't have a degree in computer science get their foot in the door. So when we moved to St. Louis, I was able to get a job at a startup with the experience I had in JavaScript, because I had my own portfolio. But much like Linda was saying, you know, it's what's great about Practicum and why I love it so much is because you know, that guidance, like it took me 2 years, and it was like really, really hard to motivate myself without any kind of like outside help. And I just felt like I didn't have any structure, and I didn't know the whole time. I was like, well, I'm making these games, like we'll see, maybe someone will hire me or maybe not. And I just felt like I really didn't know what I was doing. So with Practicum, a much better system for that.
you so much.
So yeah, I think that pretty much sums up my getting into tech story.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, I think your story is relatable in that at first you may not succeed, but try and try again, and it will certainly circumnavigate and you'll be where you're supposed to be. Anyway, certainly the story for me. So Archana, I will ask you the same question. So how did your genesis with the tech industry begin? So where did you start? How did you start with tech?
Yeah, I've been hearing such lovely answers, and I'm in awe of the hard work that you guys put in. And I definitely believe that in the tech industry there is a lot of there are a lot of ways you can get in, and also that it takes time. It's a lot of trial and error to figure out what fits well with you. I think for me, right, it started way in the beginning. I was fascinated when I was younger. So my dad is sort of a neat freak. So he loves cleaning CPUs. So I remember like summers where I used to like, and these were these very huge CPUs. Like this was back in like 2000s, and they had the Pentium processors, and my dad used to remove it and clean the motherboard, and that's when my first fascination started. Like with looking at circuit boards and stuff, and that's when I first realized that I really wanted to work around this. And then it sort of moved on. So like I was even like when I was like probably in my 6th or 7th grade, I was working with HTML, and I was going to competitions just to make websites. But back then I never really tried Stack Overflow. I'm not sure if it existed, but yeah, I never tried it for myself. So it was a lot of like textual knowledge, and I was just reading books and just going and trying it out. But yeah, over time, by the time I reached 12th grade, we were taught C++ in our school, and I think I fell in love with object-oriented programming as such, like the entire concept of it, and I really liked just building something with C++. Back then, I did not know that Python even existed. Again, like everything coming from books. So I was very much constrained. So I tried building like an entire electricity billing app completely on C++ with a UI on Turbo C++. I don't know how I managed to do that, because I'm probably sure that I can't replicate it right now. But yeah, anyway, that time I did try, and whatever, like I made it a project. And that's where I sort of first started in this field. But I guess I sort of pivoted. So towards my bachelor's, I took up electrical engineering. So I do not go in computer science. Then again, I think my story sort of resonates with the people who spoke before me here. Like I pivoted a bit, and I went into electrical engineering in the hopes that I can figure out circuits and work with electronics and power systems more. And during like the 3rd year of my college, we had this very amazing hackathon. So another takeaway here is like, go ahead and participate in hackathons if you can, because it exposes you to a lot of real world problems. So this was actually held by Government of India. It's called the Smart India Hackathon. It's like perhaps one of the biggest hackathons, and it was the first year it started. This was in 2016. And so they were having like a very interesting problem statement of figuring out power theft in India. So in India, there's a huge problem of power theft. Like I think we lose billions of dollars every year to power theft. And it happens even in urban areas where people just, take a ladder and they go tap the lines. It's as simple as that. They go tap the lines and that's it. So the government wanted a way to, click pictures of these people who were involved. And report it. That's it. They just wanted an app to do that. But like we as a team, we went a step ahead. So we figured out, okay, if power is being lost by a certain household, this means there has to be some change in the data. So there has to be a way to predict it. So we used back then we used LSTMs, which are long short-term memory networks. It's a form of neural network again, which works on time series data. And we were able to present it. I guess that's when I realized that there is like a huge, huge data which is generated constantly by power systems, even though like this form of space is like over 100 years old. Like especially in India, you can still find generators which are working like 100 years old, but still they'll generate a lot of data that you can use as part of being a smart grid. And that itself was a huge eye opener for me. So that's when I first started with machine learning or deep learning as such, just to understand the potential of data. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you for that. That's awesome, actually. So you pointed out something, and I noticed a commonality with you and a commonality with Nadya, and it kind of spoke to the challenges you all faced when breaking into the IT field. And I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit more. Nadya, I know you particularly said gendered. The field was very gendered, so I'm very interested in hearing your take on that. So exactly. And any other challenges you may have, and that will be the same for Linda and maybe Archana as well again. But Nadya, I want to start with you. What challenges do you face in the IT industry now? And is it something that you are still currently working through, or have the problems kind of subsided?
Yeah, great question. So when I was in college, I think that was when I first kind of realized, I mean, it was always kind of there in my subconscious of like, just the way we're raised in at least, I mean, I'm sure it varies culturally, but definitely in the United States of like, girls, they're supposed to be like into like, frilly dresses and whatever, like, not into like math and science, because those are like man fields or whatever, but like,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so like there's some conditioning there even as a kid. Of course, I think some of that for me was offset by my parents both being in physics. They were kind of like, you can do whatever you want, like, strong parental figure kind of thing. But even with that, like, I still felt when I got into those computer science classes, there were some women in the intro level class, but as soon as you got into the upper levels, all those women were gone. And when you looked at the people who graduated with a computer science degree, the year before mine, there's only one woman in the whole graduating class.
Oh, wow.
With computer science. Yeah, so it was just like very, very few women would decide to stay in the computer science program. And yeah, I mean, and I was one of the ones who dropped out of it. So I think, it starts there in college. And then when I was teaching myself, looking online, looking at all of these like communities. I mean, at the time there were a few of them. Now there's way more. But you still notice the discrepancy of like there's many more on Twitter. There's many more men talking about coding than women. Recently, I was on Twitter, and someone said something that just really made a lot of women angry on Twitter.
As Twitter does, right? As Twitter does.
Yeah. He was basically like, well, why are there fewer women in tech than men? And a bunch of men responded being like, well, women are just less biologically capable. Their brains are just wired differently. They're just not as good. And, this perception is still so appallingly like there, like
prevalent. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Prevalent. And so it's just, yeah. So something you're constantly fighting. It really sucks, obviously. I mean, I think it gets a little bit easier the longer you're in the industry because you get more comfortable with interviewing. You kind of expect certain things, like you know that you have to be really confident when you're presenting yourself in interviews. And certain things you kind of like start to develop a sixth sense of like, this is a red flag. Like this company, probably I don't want to work here. Like they just said something sexist, or they just said something, or like there's no women interviewing me. Like, you can ask questions like, what's the diversity like in this company? Like, and you can also kind of pay attention to the questions they ask you. Like, some questions are just inappropriate. They shouldn't be asking you that. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was going to.
Uh-oh, did you get muted?
Jade, you're mute.
Thank y'all. Okay, so yeah, aside from that, that was going to be another point I was going to kind of bring up along with your challenges. How did those challenges impact the actual job search? But let me go to Linda and ask her any challenges. I know she touched on a few, but any challenges did you have breaking into the industry?
Actually, I will tell you a fun story. When I was a little girl, everybody asks you, what do you want to become when you grow up? I don't want to reveal my age, but I remember that everybody, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a school teacher, this and that. So I was saying, I don't know why at the time I was like 5-6 years old, I came up with this. I wanted to be a robot engineer. At the time, the robots you will see only on the movies. There was not all this automation and things that like nowadays. So I remember that everybody would laugh and would say, oh, you have to choose something else. This doesn't exist. So it started like this, you know, and even today when I meet with my family, we always have a laugh. They say, oh, do you still want to be a robot engineer? So then when I went to elementary school, I remember that there was a teacher that was doing this coding class, programming class. In Europe, they call it programming, here coding. After school that I could go, and he asked me, do you like to come to join us? And yes, I went, and of course I was the only one girl at the time, and there was only boys, and I started my journey with coding in BASIC. I was still very young at that age, but that's how I was introduced to this. Even if it was only a dream in the beginning, then this teacher introduced me to this world, and I started to like it. And then slowly, I continued with other languages. I can relate to Nadia and I don't know to pronounce your name.
Archana.
Archana, okay. It's the other way around, okay. I can relate to them that basically even when I went to university, there was only 1% of girls, all the building was only boys. And I remember that next to our building was another university, I think was chemistry or something, and there was only girls. And the girls there from the other university, they was kind of jealous. They say, oh, you have all the boys there. We don't have any boys in class. So I was like, I didn't see it like a competition. Maybe I was more in the mindset of, I remember when I was young, very young, in Romania, they have a saying that when you are not like a lady manner, they call you like băiețoaică, which means you are like a girl, but like a boy. You think like a boy, you behave like a boy. So they will call me like that, which because I never liked to cook. I never learned to cook or do things like other girls. So they will say, oh, okay. So because, you know, sometimes there are girls that they play football or, you know, so which is not so, was not so usual back then. So if you do this kind of activities, they call you are a girl, but you are with the mindset of a boy. So all my life I was considered like that. So but as was said by my predecessors, yes, I got used to work only like in male-dominated offices, to be mostly the only one or the minority, having maybe one or another colleague that was a woman in the past. Was not really easy to have another girl to work with you in the department. And many times when we have dinners or lunches with the department, I was the only one sitting at the table, and it was kind of awkward. That was the only one moment when I see the others, all the other departments, I was the only one. I felt kind of awkward that I have to make a conversation only with men. But when working was not really so awkward. I never felt like inferior or like put down or something. Maybe because of my character, if something happens, I say it right away and I clear up things. So I don't let it go overboard. But definitely things happens. I seen it and happens. So yeah.
That's right. And then Archana, I also want to get I want you to answer the same question as well. So what any challenges you face when going into IT? And then we're going to segue into, because we're getting a little close on time, we're going to segue into any general advice that you would give to women who wish to break into IT. And that can be skill set, that can be anything. So let's start with like any challenges you had, and then let's segue into any advice you would give women that are looking to break into the IT field.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was already thinking in the same way, so it's great that the question is also tailored for that. So yeah, I think like you know, obviously the ladies before me have like brought out the problems pretty well, the challenges, especially like what happens, like, the fact is the industry has to sort of let everyone know that there is inequality. They have to accept the fact that there is an inequality that exists. And what I have noticed is, interestingly, being in the industry, is that I don't know how many of you have noticed this over the years, is that for entry level jobs, we have like very, women centric drives that happen just for entry level jobs. Like, for example, entry level software engineers and so on. And, companies, a lot of companies, you might have heard of the big tech, who are like working towards it just to get hiring of women in entry level jobs. But what we have also seen, interestingly, is that when people progress in their career, there's a higher chance that a woman might leave their jobs. And so it's important to find a way to sort of strengthen and to influence their career at this point, because they need the right resources to either switch roles or to become better on their own role. And now there are various factors as to why this happens. And I think this is where organizations like Women Who Code work perfectly well, because our target audience right now is engineers, especially with 2 or more years of experience, because we realize that is the right time where you need to make sure that you give the right resources, and also make sure that if people, for example, I am an AI engineer right now, but I want to migrate into cloud. I have little knowledge into it, because I just use cloud for very little part of my job. And so what if I want to become a full-time cloud engineer after that? Will I have the right resources to go into it? Or, will I just fall into attrition like the others? So, I mean, this is a question that we need to ask ourselves, especially as part of the industry. How can we make sure that hiring happens not only for entry-level jobs, but hiring also keeps going on for senior level jobs, and also for people switching careers? Because a lot what happens is that women need the right resources to, for example, switch from an engineer to a manager or to a technical executive. How do we make that happen? How do we build an ecosystem to support that? I guess these are the questions that an industry definitely needs to ask. And I definitely believe that having a support system helps. I guess this is where organizations like Women Who Code come into play. Having a community helps, just to go back to. And, we all have our day jobs, but just to have a community to go back to and discuss it, and have other women who are going through what you are going through, is a pretty big deal. Like, it really helps you grow as a person. So I think that is where Women Who Code comes in. And furthermore, like, what I've realized is, like, now that tips, like, I've already gotten into it a bit, like, have a community around you, and one more thing is that I have tips both ways. So I have tips like of how you can as a person feel more like you belong in tech, but I also have tips as to what the industry can do right now. So firstly, if I talk about how you can be better, is that what I have realized is that you have to own yourself. I have also, like, all the teams I've been with right now, I'm probably one, or the, like, maybe we just have like 2 women, or right now I'm the only woman in my team. And that happens a lot. And you're going to be in this space where you're going to self-doubt yourself. Maybe did I say something right? Or did I sound right? Or maybe did my colleague say something more intelligent? That's probably going to be questions that going to pop up in your head again and again. But it's important that you own the space. They hired you for a reason. So it means you say that, okay, I am owning this space. That is very important. Secondly, figure out. So, I mean, one another thing that even Linda brought up is imposter syndrome. It happens a lot in tech. This feeling like, maybe I'm not suitable enough for this job. Maybe I don't have what it takes. That's something that we ask ourselves, which is also a part of self-doubt. I've realized is that it's important to figure out what is the source of an imposter syndrome. Like, for example, I was like, during the start of the pandemic, I was like all of us, I was a lot more on social media. Like, I was scrolling through Twitter often. And then I realized that, for example, Twitter has this feature where, the person you are following likes something and it'll pop up on your feed. And this sort of keeps going on. Like, the algorithm is built in such a way that, the person, like, if there are a lot of people who you follow has liked a particular post, it's going to pop up on your feed. So, you're going to come across a lot of people. And I realized that I used to come across posts every day of people doing something wonderful. And I used to feel like, oh my God, I am not being the same person. Like, I am not able to achieve the same. So, like, how do I stop it? And the answer is as simple as figure out how you can stop using the platform less. It's as simple as that. We need to, that's small ways in which you can sort of change and do that. And also one last thing, that when it comes to what you can do for like self tips, is that I've realized it's important to have a mentor. Like a lot about what we do in life, there are people ahead of us who have paved the path for us. So they definitely know how things work, and you can reach out to mentors in communities like Women Who Code or any other community that you know of, and find maybe a female mentor if you are searching for one. And it usually helps because they can definitely give you tips of how they manage to stay in the industry. And if you like come across Women Who Code Python, we also have like a buddy me up program going on where people get like, matched up with buddies and try and achieve their goals. So if you're interested, you could do that too. So these are like tips of how you could stay in the industry and not feel left out. I think apart from that, when it comes to industry, right, one thing that I definitely believe is that hiring needs more women involved and more women, like female engineers involved. This does not mean only engineers who have like higher experience, but also engineers who are fresh. Because like, for example, I came into I joined a new company perhaps like 9 months ago. So I understand and like I at least have an immediate knowledge of the hiring process that took place. So my recommendations can definitely help how hiring happens next, right? So steps like that helps, wherein like you have more women in hiring and they have more say in how the next hire is taken in, and how diversity plays a role there. So I guess I think I've talked enough, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it looks like people were enjoying the conversation just by looking in the chat. But I'm going to ask Nadya her advice, and then we're going to go to the Q&A portion from the chat. See if I have any questions from anybody for you. So Nadya, what advice did you have about breaking into the IT industry? And then right after that, I'll look to see what questions participants had for you all.
Yeah, I think Archana touched on a lot of really good points. I mean, the industry has a lot of room for improvement, and there's things we can do as individuals, of course, but there's also things that, it's not helpful to blame ourselves always. Like, I've definitely been in some workplaces that were just extremely toxic. And, I could have, and I did at some points, I did say like, well, like I need to push through, I need to really like stick it out, this is my problem, blah, blah, blah. And I really wish I hadn't. I really wish I had just quit and found a different job. And the thing is, like, your first year in tech, it is important to kind of stay in one company and kind of get those skills. You don't want to like immediately jump around, because then, it's going to look like a red flag. But once you've been in the field for a year or two, it's totally okay to find a new job. Like, there are so many jobs in this field. And I mean, I guess I should say that with a caveat of like, obviously this depends on location. I mean, I live in DC, so there are like a ton of tech jobs. And of course, now with the pandemic and everything, there's a lot more remote jobs too. So take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, this depends on your location. But for me, there were just so many times when I should have left and I didn't leave as quickly as I wish I had. And yeah, so like the red flags I mentioned earlier. So like some red flags I've experienced, and some of these, you kind of have to like take in the context of the situation as well. But I actually wrote an article about this particular case. There was a job where I actually interviewed 7 times with the company. And if you're going through that many interviews, if they just keep coming back with more questions, more indecision, more kind of flakiness, you don't want to work there. And I made the mistake that I still accepted the job after 7 interviews. And it ended up being a terrible place to work. But I just been pretty new to the field. I just moved to DC. I had been in a job that I really didn't like, and I was just like trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. And I just took the first offer I had, even though there were all these red flags, and I really regret that. Because then after 6 months, I ended up leaving and trying to find a new job again. And it's just like, on one hand, I now have a ton of interview experience, so that helps. But on the other hand, I do wish that I had kind of like paid more attention to those red flags. And another thing, like Women Who Code is such a great community. I really wish I had gotten engaged with the community earlier, because now I'm in the Women Who Code DC Tech Slack. And I've met so many women, like in the pandemic, we've been doing these virtual coffees every week. I'm meeting a new woman in the area every week, and they're always so kind and helpful. They're like, oh, like, you know, like I'm looking at these jobs, like, let me share these with you. Like, I have these connections, let me share these with you. Like, it's just like, we're really into like supporting each other because we know we're kind of a minority in this space. And, you know, that support that you get for one another is just so important. And I've also found that like, it really is a big red flag if you're the only woman in the tech side of the company. I mean, I don't want to say that's always true because of course I can't work at every company, but in my experience, it's been true. Like if there's not a lot of diversity at all, if it's just like all white guys, it's probably not going to be a great place to work for you. Like if you're a woman, because it's just, they're on a different wavelength, like, and they don't know how to work with you. It's just like, it's hard. I mean, there's been, you know, like, I've had like sexual harassment. I've had like all kinds of just like inappropriate behavior. And yeah, it's not worth dealing with.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you all for your insights on the industry. And I'm going to switch gears to the questions that some participants put in, and I see we have, oh my goodness, 6 minutes. So we're going to get to these questions now. Let me find, first question is from Tiffany. What was the most challenging interview question you can remember? And I don't know if all of you want to answer it or one of you want to answer it. Just let me know. So the question was, what was the most—
I can answer this question. So
go ahead, Linda.
Basically, we think always when we talk about the interview that only the interviewer has to ask questions. The point that I realized during my life is that you have to ask lots of questions, because when you go to work, you will need to ask lots of questions to get the job done. And that's the trap that mostly, even myself, I went when I was younger, that I thought that others has to tell you things. So don't feel bad. Every job you start, even if you have experience, everything, and you move to another project, you start from the beginning. You have again that imposter feeling. You don't know stuff. So it's always, so it doesn't, people don't know if you really don't know because you don't have experience, or you don't know because it's a new project, it's a new field, it's a new stuff. But the important thing is, the key to take away here, it's asking questions. You want to ask questions in an interview to find out what kind of people they are, how it will be your job, what you will do in daily to day job, how they like it, what they like there. The people like, even interviewers like to brag about themselves, talk about themselves. They want to know you, to know about you, but they want to talk about themselves also. So turn the tables, how they say in English, no?
That's a good point. So instead of them asking you challenging questions, you make sure you ask them the challenging questions as well. So I think that's a good point. And we are down 4 minutes.
And if you are not, oh, okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And if you are not used to ask questions in the beginnings, you can Google. There are so many out there that you can start to create a list for yourself.
Okay, that's a good point too. Let me pick another one. So from Dahlia, she says, in the tech field in general, are hard skills more important or soft skills more important? Or is it vice versa? What do you think? Do you think hard skills are more important, so those more technical skills, or soft skills like teamwork and communication, do you think those are more important? Or are they equally as important? And this can be for anybody.
You will be surprised to find out how the industry shifted from the that techie developers that they are with the hoodies and they are only typing code. And you will be surprised to find how much interaction as a developer you have with the client, with the team, or the stand-up meetings where you have to talk, you have interaction with the team. If you don't know something, go and ask a question. Don't feel like, oh, I don't know to this. You are stuck for hours, and you going and asking questions, you will have lots of interaction with everybody in the team.
Sounds like you have soft skills. Oh, go ahead, Archana.
Oh, yeah. No, I know we're short of time. So I just wanted to pick up from there. So I think like it's also dependent on your job a lot. So if you ask me as an AI engineer, I deal a lot with data. So,
Mhm.
and you like perhaps like one of the most, annoying part or the boring part of my job is figuring out how to get the right sort of data from a team. Like 9 times out of 10, you would not get the right data and you keep asking them for the right sort of data so that you can actually make the models that you want to. So I think like at that point, communication is very, very important to make sure that you are open to talking to teams. You are open to saying that, you know what, your data isn't good. I need more data. So I think in those cases, for sure, soft skills matter. But you also need to have a little bit, I believe, a set of technical skills that you bring to the workplace. Because at the end of the day, it's a combination of both, which makes the magic happen as such. So yeah.
That's a good point. And we are down to about 2 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and close here with a few things. I did see a quick comment about the Women Who Code Practicum Joint Scholarship. And someone asked, was it only available to US applicants? I don't think that's the case. Am I right on that, Anna? I think it's available to everyone.
Yeah, there's going to be a link on the follow-up email, so you can learn more details about the scholarship and how to apply in this link. And I think Jade is going to share a few more words about the scholarship at the end.
Yeah, I think we have 1 minute to do that, but I was just trying to make sure it's available to everyone global, not just in the US. But let me show my screen just very quickly. Very quickly. All right. All right. All right, so this is, as Anna was referring to, this is the link that you will receive in your follow-up email after the event. And it is a link to the application for the Women Who Code Scholarship. And there's a lot more information available here. And like I said, I believe this scholarship, is available to people globally, not just in the US. I saw that comment. So when you get the email, just take a look at it, see if this is something that you'd be interested in, and please don't hesitate to apply. Oops, sorry there, guys. Back. So those are kind of the ending remarks there. I know we're at 1 o'clock now and people have things to do, but thank you so much for joining us for this program. And I hope we have a lot more like this in the future. And please stay connected with us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or night, depending on where you are. So thanks so much for sharing, everyone, and look out for that follow-up email shortly. Thank you so much.